Let me have a look. It's wonderful to see you all. We have a lot of material to cover today, so I'm not going to do a long introduction. I think we're just going to start with setting up our motivation, and first by calming the mind, relaxing the mind, focusing the mind, so that we can get most out of these teachings. So make yourself comfortable. Comfortable, and at the same time it is awake, alert. And so what is of help to generate such a mind is that we have a straight back. Straight in the sense that we put all the vertebrae on top of each other. That helps us to stay awake, to stay alert. And then we do that in a way that we can relax all the muscles of the shoulders, along the vertebrae, along the spine. And so that relaxation in the muscles helps us to be more mindful, to rest the mind on the object, to rest the mind on the body. If we are very tense, the mind has the tendency to be distracted. So by relaxing the body, we support the practice of mindfulness. By straightening up the spine, we support the practice of alertness, and we need both. And so when we have a straight spine like this, you can observe how all your thoughts naturally come to rest. Your mind is with the body or with your breath. And all the busyness in your mind quietens down. And then we set up a positive motivation for listening, reflecting, and meditating today. And think that you are engaging in these activities in order to develop your potential of wisdom and compassion, your potential of understanding the nature of reality, and of opening your heart for each and every sentient being. Because you understand that this state of mind, if we would achieve that, we would experience perfect happiness, the happiness of an enlightened mind, the happiness of a mind that is fully awake. And we do that not just for our own benefit. We realize that each and every sentient being around us is suffering from exactly the same things as we are suffering. And we realize that all these sentient beings want to be happy just as much as we want to be happy. These sentient beings are our fathers, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, our relatives, our friends. So if we would, whatever goodness comes from listening, reflecting, and meditating, if we would just keep that for ourselves, that would be kind of selfish, no? So try to think that whatever benefit is going to come, whatever wisdom you develop, whatever compassion you develop in dependence on these teachings, you're going to use that for And then before we go into the teachings, our director, the director of the would like to say something to you. Pema?
Yes, Venerable. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much all for joining and being with us for past 5 days, and we deeply appreciate your dedication and interest in learning Dharma. And so I want to request you all or encourage you all to so if you like this course and if you find this course beneficial, then I want to request you all to make donations for Tushita, because we are completely relied on the donations. We are in the 5th month of the lockdown, and it's we are not. I think we are not going to open this year, so we still have few months to go. So we really depend on the donations. We don't have any other sources of income, so please help us. You all have been very supportive for the past few months, so I want to thank you all for that. And also, it's mentioned that this course is free, but I'm requesting here for the donation because if anyone you can make, then it will be really helpful for us. And we do understand that we are all in the same situation. So anyone, if you in the not position to make donation, that is also absolutely fine. So yeah, I want to make that clarification. And then offerings are most welcome for Venerable Jamyang. And so when you register for this course, you have received a mail from us with the Zoom link and everything. In there, the donation page link is given there, so you can use that link to make the donations and offerings for Venerable Jamyang. And please make sure that you mentioned in the comment box clearly whether it's for Venerable Jamyang or Tushita, so that we can differentiate. And if you don't have that mail, then you can also contact us on register@tushita.info. We can give you the link again. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oops. Am I still here? Yes, here I am. So what are we going to do today? We're going to finish the antidotes to attachment that we started to talk about yesterday. And then we talk about how to counteract the self-grasping mind and the self-cherishing mind. That is a lot of information. I could talk 10 days about that in 1 hour. So I'm going to try to give you the essence. And then I would advise you to listen to other teachings that go more into detail, or sign up for a following course where these topics get discussed more in depth. So far in terms of what can we do with our situation, where we suffer, where we experience problems, where we do not feel as happy as we would like to feel. So we start talking about what can we do about that. And we have spoken about that in order to stop the suffering of pain, we have to stop creating the causes for that. And the causes for that are harmful actions of body, speech, and mind. And then we also spoke about the causes for happiness. How do we create that? By engaging, first of all, abstaining from the harmful actions is already a positive action. But then if we also engage in actions that are benefit to others, we create causes for happiness all the time. So then we also spoke about how when delusions arise in the mind, because that is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, isn't it? They are there all the time. What do we do with that? So we spoke about general antidotes that you can apply in order to lessen the delusions. And now we speak about specific antidotes to specific delusions. So yesterday we spoke about the antidotes to anger, which is that we first contemplate the disadvantages of anger, how destructive it is, and that we damage our own body, maybe the body of others, relationships, goods. You know, anger is a very destructive emotion. And so thinking about how destructive it is, you maybe realize, I shouldn't go there. You know, don't follow your anger. And then we also spoke about practicing the antidotes to anger, which are patience and loving kindness. And then we started with talking about attachment, and we already discussed the nature of attachment, which is that it never brings satisfaction. It is dissatisfactory by nature, which means that when we follow our attachment in order to get something or somebody, whatever is in the world, there is always something missing. You know, the happiness that we experience in dependence on what we get is never complete, it's never perfect. Also, following your desire, you know, whether we have the object of a desire or we don't have the object of desire, it is both in the nature of suffering. Because each and every object, each and every person in this world comes in a package. It always comes with a package of problems, right? When we have a life with children, we experience the problems of having children. When we have a life without children, we experience the problems that come with having no children. When we live life with a partner, that comes with the problems of having a partner. When we do not have a partner, we experience the problems of not having a partner. And we can apply that to everything. You know, problems are part of samsara. Problems are part of life. They can come with anything. And they do not so much depend upon us having or not having the object or being or not being with the person, but it is more independence on our mind, whether or not we experience problems or how much problems we experience. Following desire itself is suffering. When there is a lot of desire in the mind, it's suffering, you know, because that mind is chasing. I want something. And by doing that, we constantly create causes for more suffering. We are causes to be reborn again and again and again in any of the 6 realms, not necessarily as a human being, depending on our actions. So yesterday I compared it with having a skin disease. That's not actually my comparison. That comes out of a book, Lamrim book. So I don't want to take any credits for that. So there it is compared with having a skin disease that is itching. And so following attachment is that we constantly itch, scratch, you know, and then the itching goes a little bit away and then it starts again and we have to scratch again. So we have to keep engaging. Following our attachment, we have to keep engaging in getting things, in having things, in order to experience the pleasure that is connected to them. But we never will be without that skin disease, where we do not have to scratch and where we have a total peaceful mind. Right? So better to find ways to get rid of that skin disease instead of having to scratch all the time. And so then the last thing that I mentioned is that when we follow desire, our life becomes or is empty, meaningless, you know. You chase all these things that look like if you have them, they're gonna make you happy. And then you might find yourself at a certain moment in a place where you have the house, you have the partner, you have the kids, you have the car, you have everything that you thought was needed to have a happy life. And inside you feel it's empty. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything having this or not having this. So knowing that this is the nature of attachment, the better you can see that and recognize in yourself and in your mind and what it does to your mind, that knowledge, that understanding is an antidote to attachment. You know, because with that knowledge, once the attachment starts to arise again, that knowledge is going to give you different information and is going to say, I don't believe it, you know. Attachment is telling you, I'm going to make you happy, but your wisdom mind knows, no, it's not. It appears like that, but attachment doesn't have that capacity. And that knowledge is going to help you to weaken the strength of your attachment. It's going to weaken your tendency to follow your attachment. And then it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, and it takes time, right? We cannot change our attachment like that. Slowly, 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 we can diminish it, make it less strong. So then another thing that we can do is we can contemplate the disadvantages or the many problems that can come from desire. So one thing is that when we have very strong desire in the mind, then it is also very easy to become angry. The stronger the attachment, the stronger the anger. You know, and think about the 8 worldly concerns that we spoke about. When we have strong attachment to getting the pleasures for comfort, for material gain, for the sense pleasures, for good reputation, hearing pleasant sounds, if we have strong attachment to these pleasures, then when we get the opposite, anger comes very quickly. Also, you know, jealousy, pride, all based on attachment. The stronger the attachment, the stronger any of the delusions. Also, when we have strong attachment, you know, it leads to addiction. And 30 years ago, we would think about addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs. But nowadays, if you see what people are all addicted to, and it is so easy to get addicted, and it is so difficult to turn the mind away from addiction. And so if you experience some kind of addiction, see how unhappy the mind becomes, how uncontrolled, how obsessed with whatever you are addicted to. You know, we're all addicted to social media. And then when the internet doesn't work for 1 hour, for 1 day, We go crazy, you know, where is my internet? It should work. How is this possible? And we feel like I'm missing something. I need this connection with my internet. I need to be on social media, right? That is an addiction that is driven by attachment. And I think I mentioned this also already before, that from this dissatisfied mind of desire, of attachment, comes disease. Dissatisfaction is a condition for sickness. Wanting things that, you know, are from this uncontrolled mind of attachment makes the mind sick. Anger also makes the mind sick, makes the body sick. And you can find many studies, scientific studies, that show that when there is a lot of affliction in the mind, how that influences the body, and that the body is less healthy. And also, when we have strong attachment, our moods go very much up and down. You know, we can have fantastic heights. I think, I'm not sure if that was in this course that somebody talked about being manic. You know, that's huge attachment. And then you drop down into your depression, which is very strongly connected to aversion. So the mind goes up and down much easier. There is strong attachment in the mind. I'm very happy when I get something. I'm very disappointed and depressed when I do not get something. It's more stable, you know, not much anymore, but mind, there was so space for other things than just running after what you want to have. And so one other attachment was get from a past, and also doesn't remove the problems, right? Sorry for that, I'm back. Let me see where I was. So following desire, running after the pleasures with our attachment, it doesn't remove the problems. If I have a partner that I experience a lot of distress being with this person, I might decide this is not for me, I'm going to find another partner, you know. How often do you find another partner and after some time it turns out that he or she has a similar kind of behavior, or it is triggering a similar kind of reaction in your own mind? The problem that you experience in the mind doesn't go away by you having or not having the objects. The problem is in your mind. Having or not having an object is not going to remove that. When we have less attachment in the mind, so then what you can contemplate the advantages of having less attachment. If we have a little desire for the four positive things that give us pleasure, like the material things, the comfort, etc., then not having these will not be a problem. If there is no desire, then then getting the opposite is also not a problem. Right? Having wealth is not a problem. The problem is desiring and clinging to wealth. Having or not having a friend is not a problem, but the mind clinging to the friend, or the mind clinging, I want to have a friend, that is the problem. If we have less attachment, and then when people or friends don't meet our expectations, we don't feel hurt or disturbed. Our mind can still be calm and peaceful. And so this brings some stability in your life. This brings peace of mind. So how can we practice that? So there are two main antidotes to attachment. One is practicing contentment. Being content with living comfortably but simply. Not having many objects that you need to worry about. You know, but at the same time, comfort is important. So if you can set yourself up in a simple way with the minimum things that you need, you know, then the mind stays calm and focused. You can buy a huge house, 2 houses, 3 houses, then you have to go and buy furniture. You have to, I mean, the problems that come with that is unbelievable. So that keeps the mind so busy. I know, I did that. And at a certain point I thought, I'm just working to sustain my life, you know, to be able to do the work that I'm doing, to be able to keep the house, to provide. I was a physiotherapist, to provide all my patients what they need. My gosh, you know, it's like the energy that I needed in order just to sustain that life and the money that I needed for that. And I felt like, you know, I have everything, but it's not making me happy. But that's personal, you know, you need to get to that point yourself. You do not have to do that because somebody else tells you that. But you can reflect on it. And so the second antidote to attachment is that you reflect on impermanence. Impermanence of the things that you are attached to, the impermanence of your experience, you know. We want something to have that moment of pleasure. So reflecting, yes, it is a moment of pleasure, but how long is it going to last? And if you have an addiction, you know, for instance, to chocolate, you have a piece and you taste it and you have this little bit of pleasure, and then the pleasure is gone, and then you think, I want another piece, and I want another piece. And we have to keep repeating it. But that feeling that comes is just very, oops, something happened. That feeling that comes is very temporary, and it is not going to last. You know, no matter how many times you repeat it, it's not going to become better. We can also think about the impermanence of relationships, of people, and then of ourselves. We are not going to be forever here. We are not going to be forever in this body. So what if, how much do I need this in this life? You know, what would happen to me? What do I do with all these things that I collect right now? What do I do with that when the moment when I die? Or when I'm very old and I'm at the end of my life, what am I going to do with all these things? What can I take with me? And so when you think about your own impermanence, according to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that is the strongest antidote to the 8 worldly concerns. to being obsessed with the happiness of this life. Thinking about your own death doesn't mean that you not strive to be happy. It doesn't mean that you do not care about this life. You still want to be happy in this life. But when you think about your own impermanence, that you're going to die one day, then the way you strive for happiness becomes very different. Once you realize the impermanence of your own being, your attachment to this life naturally becomes less strong. And then you don't have to think, oh, I shouldn't be attached. It's so bad, you know. You don't have to think like that. When you think about that your life will end one day, your attachment to this life naturally becomes less. Then you naturally start to feel what is really important to you in this life. And you start to engage with that. And so you let go of that temporary happiness. You know, attachment is quite a erratic energy that can make the mind really crazy. But you can go to more meaningful activities that give a much more satisfaction, that creates less disturbances in the mind. And we can also think about impermanence in terms of subtle impermanence, that things are changing moment to moment. Things are changing all the time. So therefore there is nothing to hold on to. You know, that helps to bring the mind in the present moment. So these are the main antidotes. When there are objects or persons that trigger your delusion strongly, it might be better for you and for your mind to keep some distance for a while, right? In order to lessen the delusions. Don't go close. You know, we know that when we suffer from addiction, we need to create an environment where that object of our addiction is not there. Right? If you cannot stop eating chocolate, it's best not to buy any chocolate and put it in your home. Stay away from the object that is causing great disturbances in your mind until you train your mind better. And then you see how much you can allow these objects or these persons into your life. You know, and sometimes you can say, if there are people that disturb you greatly, then first you stay away from them. And then in that time that you stay away from them, you try to address. And then you maybe can say, okay, I can see that person, but only for 5 minutes. And not every day, maybe once a week. And then you're very aware, this is what I can handle, not more. Right? That is also how you can protect your mind. So when we start practicing letting go what we are very attached to, especially those of you who have suffered from addiction and have managed to let go of that addiction, then you know that when you start to let go of something that you are very attached to, there is this kind of detox that is going to happen, where the object is not there or the person is not there and your whole being screams, I want that. And then you have to sit through that and say, I know that you want it, but we're not going to go there. Right? And so we know that if we need to do a detox, depending on what it is, can take 1 week, 2 weeks, or I don't know. It took me 1 year to give up smoking. You know, so long the craving was so strong in the mind. So during that time you go through a kind of withdrawal. We still experience the craving, but we do not give it to ourselves. And so if you have done that with certain things in your life, you know that you're eventually going to get to a point where there is no more craving, where you can experience the freedom of craving. And then you also know that that freedom comes with the joy, you know. You have taken control over your mind. It is not your attachment that is ruling you anymore. So when we start working with our attachment, these kind of processes we go through. So somebody said, is Dharma, practicing Dharma, is that pleasure? You know, when you want to let go of attachment, it's not just pleasure. You're going to experience the suffering of not having what you want. But if you do that with the wisdom mind that can see that that attachment is never going to bring you what you want, and you are willing to let go, you go through the suffering of not getting what you want. Once you have gone through that suffering, once you have fully experienced that, your suffering is gone. And that one will never come back. You are free of that. You have freed your mind from one aspect of attachment, one layer of attachment. When we follow attachment, you satisfy yourself temporarily in the short term. You have to keep doing that forever. That's not going to change. That's not going to shift. That's not bringing you ever to a place of freedom of suffering. Can you see that? That there is a difference following your attachment or letting go your attachment. Both come with suffering. But the suffering of letting go your attachment, you experience that one time, or if you have strong attachment, you know, a couple of times, and then you have freedom. No more craving to that object. No more interest. Then whether you get it, whether you don't get it, you know, maybe when you get it, you enjoy it. When you don't get it, no problem. When you are with the suffering of withdrawal, you know, for instance, you have a lot of anxiety or you have strong depression, and instead of following it or running away from it, you say, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to feel what it is. I'm going to try to nourish myself in a way that my mind calms down, you know. This is very hard work. You take on the suffering that has been arising in your mind. And taking that on can be exhausting, you know, so take care of yourself when you do that. Be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself. Rest when you need to rest. But at the same time, know that there is nothing better to do with your life than that. Because if you can free yourself from these layers of attachment, of delusions, you create freedom for yourself that is not just a freedom that you're going to experience in this life, but it is something that you're going to take with you. And I think there are also causes to fulfill your potential of loving kindness, of compassion, of wisdom. All right? So that's attachment. Let me have a look if there is a... I might not have too much time to do questions today. So it can also be, what if someone is just the opposite extreme and walks about with sheer detachment, nihilistic view about the world? Well, you know, it's not up to you. But if you are the person who is detached and has a nihilistic view, you need to check reality. Detachment often comes from not being attached safely when you were very young. So then you would have to go back to that and then first make sure that you have safe, that you find some way to create safe attachment for yourself. And then you heal that trauma. And then maybe it shows that you have a lot of attachment. And then you start applying the antidotes as we just talked about. So then, what is the root of our attachment? The root is our self-grasping mind. The mind that grasps at a self in a way that it doesn't exist in actuality. The self that exists, the self that exists conventionally, is that which is merely imputed independence on the 5 aggregates. It is not the mind itself, it is not our awareness, it is not our body, because I can say my body, my mind, right? So that shows the self is something different. Then some people say then the self is the observer, but the self can also be identified as the anger, as our wisdom, as our compassion, as parts of our body. We can identify with anything as being me or mine. But that doesn't mean that if I say I have pain in my heart, you know, this is my heart, I am the owner of my heart, but that the owner is just merely imputed upon the heart, merely imputed on my body. It is not my heart, it is not, there is no entity in me that owns my body, that owns my mind, that controls my body, that controls my mind. It appears like that, but if we look for it, we cannot find anything that exists like that. So that is how the mind, how the self exists conventionally. It is extremely subtle. And we can't see that the self exists as being merely imputed on the mind due to our ignorance, due to our obscurations. So we have afflictive obscurations, which are the delusions. And then we have what they call knowledge obscurations, which are the appearances of inherent existence, the appearance that things have their own objective entity. So due to our delusions, we cannot see how things exist in actuality on the conventional level. It's like a veil. Sometimes they say it's like a cataracts, you know, that a cataracts can cause you to see falling hairs. It causes you to see something that in actuality is not there. So we see a self that exists inherently, while in actuality, there is no inherently existent self. There is a self, but that one we cannot see due to the cataracts. So what we do, that inherent existence is something that it is a quality that we add to what exists in actuality. So there is a self conventionally, and then we add an inherent existence to that self. That inherently existent self doesn't exist, but the self does exist. And so if you're interested in that topic, you know, you need to study emptiness. And Venerable Droma is in about 1 month's time. She's going to do a course on insight into emptiness, talking about how you go about in analyzing and realizing the nature of reality as it is. If you do not have time for that, meditating on impermanence is very good antidote to our grasping at inherent existence. Seeing that things arise from causes and conditions. seeing that things change moment to moment, seeing that things, a lot of what we see, everything that we see is actually coming from the mind. The way we see it is coming from the mind. Thinking about that can help you to loosen your holding on to inherent existence. All right. So then, in dependence on that self-grasping mind, the self-grasping mind we eliminate by developing our wisdom mind. We eliminate the self-grasping mind by generating a wisdom mind that directly opposes inherent existence. We develop a mind that realizes the lack of inherent existence. The moment you see the lack of inherent existence is gone. You don't see it anymore. You see reality as it is. And you realize that what you thought was true in actuality is not true, is false, is deceptive. But as long as we have this self-grasping mind, you know, independence on that, we generate that self-cherishing mind. And the self-cherishing mind is an attitude. So in order to oppose the self-cherishing mind, we need to develop our the mind of compassion, the mind that cherishes others. So the self-grasping mind is counteracted by a wisdom mind. The self-cherishing mind is counteracted by the mind of compassion. We need both in order to fully develop our full potential. But for some people, they have more affinity to develop the heart, you know, and other people, they have more affinity to think about how things exist in actuality. So you start where you feel most affinity with, but we need both. So yesterday I saw something from Lama Zopa Rinpoche on Facebook, and I would like to share that with you because it is about the self-cherishing mind. All right, so I'm going to read that to you. So he said, it is titled, "We Are Completely Crazy." And then he says, from morning to night, we do everything with a self-cherishing mind. Inside a house, outside a house, getting dressed, walking around, talking to people, working, eating, seeing things, shopping, going to bed. We do everything with a self-cherishing mind. And even though everything we do is motivated by the wish to obtain temporal happiness and avoid temporal problems, in fact, everything we do creates the cause of greater continual suffering in the future. For countless previous lifetimes, we have been carrying on like this, perpetuating the cycle of suffering, living full time with the thought of the 8 worldly concerns. Unless we break the cycle, we will continue like this, doing the same thing on and on endlessly, because we are using entirely the wrong methods to deal with our immediate worldly problems. We are forever creating the causes of much greater suffering for ourselves. Really, we are crazy, completely crazy. So that's what we're doing, right? Working with the 8 worldly concerns, working from our attachment, working with our aversion. And this method is only going to create more suffering. So what we are talking about is how do we transform that and how do we change that? So if we want to develop the mind that cherishes others, how do we do that? We know already how to cherish others when we like people, right? When we like people, when we love people, we want them to be happy. We want them to be free of suffering, and we are willing to put energy into that. especially when you're a mother, you know, when you have children. You want your children so to be free from suffering. If they are suffering from a kind of disease, you are willing to take on the disease. Let me be sick, but not my child. And you want them so to be happy that no matter what they wish for, you know, even if it is temporarily happiness, you are willing to work for that. You are willing to get up in the middle of the night and bring your child a glass of warm milk if it wants that. As a mother, you do that for your child. So that attitude, when you do that, you know that that makes you feel good, right? You do it naturally, and it makes you feel good. And we can do that for those that are very close to us, but it is more difficult if it is about strangers. And it is even more difficult if we are with people that are hurting us, have been harming us. You know, then we are not really willing to put any effort in helping them and giving them what they want, in being willing to take on their suffering. So our mind is biased at the moment. So when we practice self-compassion, we made peace with the aspects that we don't like of ourselves. And we did that by taking on the unpleasant feelings that are the foundation of what we do not like. And I hope you remember, you know, we took that on. So if we really want to develop an attitude that can extend compassion towards other sentient beings, towards all sentient beings, which means including those that we do not like, we need to take on the unpleasant feelings that get triggered by those that we don't like. Right? If we don't like somebody, means I don't feel any benefit. I don't feel any pleasure from you. I feel displeasure from being with you. And it's because of you. So therefore, I don't want to be with you. Then these feelings do not arise in the mind. But if we could say, I'm going to take on these feelings. They are my feelings. My feelings have nothing to do with that person. My feelings show me that this person is not giving me what I want, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take on these feelings. And I'm not going to make the other person responsible for me feeling like this. That's the first thing we can do. Once we take responsibility for these feelings, we will be much more able to accept sentient beings as they are. First, we need to accept them. And then we can see if we can generate a mind that sees them as your friend. You know, His Holiness, when he meets new people, he says, it's like I see an old friend. And he sees that with everyone. And so when he meets with you and he sees you as an old friend, you feel so loved. You know, that can be a life-changing moment, being totally accepted and loved for who you are. But in order to develop that capacity, we need equanimity in our mind. And in order to develop equanimity, we need to apply reasoning. That doesn't come naturally. It won't develop independence on an emotional mind. So how do we do that? You know, we can look into relationships, how they function at the moment. And we can see that how we engage in relationships, that these relationships depend upon how much benefit we receive from the other person. When we receive a lot of benefit, you know, people love us, they like us, they tell us beautiful things about ourselves, they give us what we want, we have the feeling we have a good relationship with that person. It's about me, and it's self-centered, right? And then when somebody benefits us a lot, I'm quite willing to give back, right? To benefit that other person, because I want that relationship to last. So I give back. But it is based on what that other person can do for me. And we can fact check that by imagining a situation where that person stops benefiting us or even starts harming us. What happens? You know, very quickly we say, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that person. You know, I thought he was my friend, but in actuality he's not. Very easily relationships change. As soon as my benefit is finished, relationship changes. So that makes relationships very changeable, and because I'm focused on my benefit. So how can we change that? By realizing that relationships are so vulnerable, that somebody who is my friend today can easily change into my enemy tomorrow, can become a stranger next week, that strangers can become friends, strangers can become enemies, and enemies can also become friends. There can be situations where someone that I really can't stand, you know, maybe I fall from my bike and there is just this person that I cannot stand, and he is so kind to me and he helps me up and he takes me somewhere where whatever, you know. Suddenly I see this person in a completely different light and I say, wow, that is actually a very kind person. Wow, I'm so sorry I had such negative thoughts about you, but I now can see what kind of person you are. But it's because that person is benefiting me, right? So it's so easily can it change. Friends, enemies, strangers. So that is very important that you realize that, and that our mind just wants to be with those people who benefit us. Then we need to realize that each and every person, each and every sentient being wants to be happy, wants to be free of suffering. And that all their actions are focused upon that, just as our actions are focused upon that. At the moment, we are using all our energy to work for the benefit of one person, me. Right? We are the center of our universe. Well, there are so many people who are having the same need for happiness as we have. And the only reason why I'm called I and the other is called other is due to designation, due to the fact that I call it different. You know, if I'm standing at this side, at one side of the river, then that side is called, I'm standing at this side of the river, while the other side is called the other side of the river. So that is the only difference between me and others. We're standing at a different side of the river. If I would cross the river and stand at that side of the river, that side becomes this side. And the side where I'm standing now becomes the other side. It's just due to where I am that I call myself I and I call the others others. That's the only difference. Other than that, we are the same. So what if I can give up my happiness? What if I can give up my striving for happiness for myself alone, which is the happiness of one sentient being, in order to work for the happiness of all other sentient beings? My actions will become so much more powerful. My actions will become so much more beneficial. So many people would become happy due to maybe a similar action of what I'm doing. It's just that I'm not doing it for me, but I'm doing it for all other sentient beings. So one practice that we are doing to develop this mind is the practice of tonglen, or which is called the practice of taking and giving. And it is based on exchanging self for others, you know, on the realization, just as I want to be free from suffering, all sentient beings want to be free from suffering. And instead of focusing on myself wanting to be free from suffering and reacting with aversion, we're going to think that we're going to free all sentient beings from their suffering by taking on the suffering of all others. Right? So if I'm suffering, suffering arises in the mind, aversion follows straight away when I'm focused upon myself. And instead of focusing on that, on myself, I'm going to think, I'm not the only person who is suffering. You know, so many sentient beings suffering from exactly the same. What if my experiencing this suffering is going to be a tool for me to remember their suffering, and I'm going to take on their suffering? I first take on my own suffering, and we practice that when we practice self-compassion. And then I'm also going to take on their suffering, that me experiencing this might free all of them from suffering. And then we can visualize that suffering coming to us in the form of black smoke, and we can visualize that it is cracking the rock at our heart, which symbolizes a self-cherishing mind, and that it can crack open, opening our heart for others. So when we breathe in, we take in the suffering. And then the breathing, when we breathe out, we work with letting go the happiness. So we think, just as that I want to be happy, others want to be happy. We find happiness by craving for something. But instead of that craving, what we're going to imagine that what we are craving for, we're going to give it to all sentient beings. And we're going to imagine that we're going to make all of them happy. And we do that when we breathe out. So in order to develop love and compassion, you know, we need to see that we have a connection with others. We need to see that others have been kind to us, and having a wish to repay that kindness. So wishing to repay the kindness means I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. So we'll finish today with a meditation on tonglen. I will do a few questions, and then we'll finish with a meditation on tonglen, where we can practice this. This is a very broad topic, you know. I have to do it in 10 minutes. How to change the attitude from cherishing ourselves into an attitude that is cherishing others. If you want to know more about it, Venerable Droma is going to do, in the next few days starting, a course on a kind of introductory course on Buddhism, and then a course that goes deeper into Buddhism, where you can learn all these concepts, and also how to develop the mind that wishes to cherish others. And after that, so that is next month, I'll do a course on developing the fearless heart. And there we go really in depth, how we develop that in our own mind, and all the problems, all the obstacles that we meet while trying to develop that mind. All right. That's a very important issue, you know, changing the attitude. The moment you change your attitude, Lama Zopa says your suffering is gone. You know, you don't have to wait a long time in order to develop the mind that can do that. You can do that right now, changing your attitude. So one question is, how do you find the right balance between being compassionate and not letting someone take advantage of it? What if you are the person who someone felt triggered by, and because they felt like you were not benefiting them anymore, what do you do if someone makes you feel like you are too much to handle, even though you are putting in the work on your mind? These are many questions, no? So how do you find the right balance between compassionate and not letting someone take any advantage of it? I think when you are compassionate, you want others to be free from suffering, right? If you feel that others take advantage of that, I would say check what is your motivation that you want others to be free from suffering and others want to be happy. Often, not often, I don't know how often, I see it often, that people are people pleasers. They want others to be happy. It's like, I really want you to be happy. And then they're taken advantage of. Why? Because the reason why they want others to be happy is coming from a deep fear. Fear of rejection, fear of not being lovable, fear of being not good enough, you know. And so then you want others to be happy, almost out of an attempt to prove that you are good enough, that you are lovable, that there is no reason to reject you. And so when that fear is there, then I think people easily can take advantage of you, or you can feel that they're taking advantage of you. If you have resolved these issues in yourself, then you are compassionate, you have healthy boundaries, you are compassionate, but people cannot take advantage of you anymore. Okay, so then the next question is, can equanimity be truly developed through a cognitive or intellectual discussion? As many times we logically understand that our addictions, attachment are wrong. I wouldn't say wrong, I would say cause you suffering. But it does not change the habits, you know? So we need to tackle the problem on different minds. And I think equanimity doesn't come about in dependence on emotions. Equanimity comes about in understanding that all sentient beings are the same as we are. Maybe you're talking about a different equanimity. Are you talking about an equanimity in which your mind doesn't have a preference for one thing or the other? You know, in order to get to that mind, you first need to see, with your midst of mind that your attachment is unhealthy, that your attachment is the thing that is killing you. And it can take a long time to really see that. You have to apply your wisdom mind again and again and again and again. And then you have to sit with that. You can meditate on it. You can visualize yourself being free of that addiction. You can wonder, what would I be without my addiction? You know, sometimes it might be the only thing that gives value to our life. If that's the case, you're not going to let go of that addiction. So you have to dig deep in your mind. Wisdom is not just intellectual thinking. Wisdom is thinking on the level of your heart, on the level of your gut. Deep, 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 looking into your own mind. What is it that is driving you? Why do you keep repeating that? It's not just up here. So you need to connect your wisdom, your light, the light of your wisdom with what is actually going on. You shine that light. What is going on? Why am I doing that? And when you start questioning that, you start seeing different aspects of that. And then, you know, some attachment we can easily let go. Some attachment, it feels like I need that in order to survive. You know, and some attachment are so merged with our own personality that is what we are. You know, letting go of that, then who am I? I don't exist anymore. Attachment, they say, is like oil, you know, in a cloth. It goes through everything in the whole structure. And it is not that we just wash it one time and it is gone. You know, you have to keep washing before it gets out of the whole structure of your cloth. You thought about equanimity towards pleasant and unpleasant sensations. So the fear of not feeling good enough, I would refer you, so there was a question, how can you work with the fear of not being good enough? To look at the videos on self-compassion. And also, the fear of not being good enough is a wrong understanding. It is something that is in actuality impossible. It is impossible not to be good enough. It is a belief that you have adopted, you know. So once you can see that that is a belief that you have adopted under certain circumstances, and that belief has nothing to do with reality, the better you see that, the better it is gone. Right? So I would say, don't work with you have to develop the mind that can see that your feeling of not being good enough, or your belief, I'm not good enough, is a belief that is not based on anything. It is based on an experience that you had. But that's it. It has nothing to do with you. Once you see that, you don't have the feeling anymore, and also your fear is gone. So wisdom your wisdom mind, seeing things as they are, seeing things in accordance with reality. When you see things in accordance with reality, fear is gone. In order to see, I'm not talking about my eyes, right? I'm talking about the eye of my wisdom mind. I'm talking about seeing not just intellectually. You need to see it so deep in your own psychic. You know, and it can feel, sometimes you feel it in your gut. You need to go and look there and see that what is there, what you're holding on to, is not in accordance with reality. So how can we differentiate between aspiration and desire that is born from attachment? So yesterday I called both of them desire, right? So desire, which is an aspiration, is I would just say your heart is open. There is nothing for you personally to gain. Although there are things, you know, you can grow, but it doesn't feel this is for me. Your heart is open. When there is attachment, the heart closes. You know, you feel the grasping, I want. Or your mind, your consciousness contracts. When you have aspirations, your consciousness opens up. You want to learn. You want to extend. You want to expand. All right, I hope that's helpful. So somebody says, aren't all the difficult people in our life also our greatest teachers, as they teach us to be patient and also develop unconditional love and kindness in our hearts? So we can take all difficult people as our teachers. Yes, they are not inherently our teachers, you know. That's a way of working with difficult situations in order to grow your own qualities. Right? It is not that, you know, if you say they're not teachers in and of themselves, you can see them as your teachers. It is not that anyone is teaching you a lesson or is teaching you. In Buddhism, that doesn't exist, because everything that is created is coming from the mind. But if there are difficult people, I have the choice whether I'm going to see them as difficult people and react with my aversion and say, I do not want to have anything to do with them. Or I say, whoa, that causes a lot of disturbance in my mind. What an opportunity for practice, you know? I'll take that person on as my teacher, and I'm going to learn from all these disturbances in my mind how I can develop more patience, how I can develop more loving kindness. That's my choice, how I take someone. All right. I think I'm going to leave it here because I want to do with you the meditation on tonglen. Tonglen is kind of the most profound Buddhist practice in which you can, with every breath you take, you can transform your mind from a self-centered mind into a mind that is cherishing others. So thank you so much for being here during the course and for participating in the way that you have been doing. I have enjoyed your questions very much, and I have enjoyed your presence very much. And so I also want to thank Tushita for organizing this, and Felipe for being here all the time, helping with the technical side of things. So I've told you a little bit about what you can do if you are interested in following up with, you know, more courses or deepen your understanding. Somebody said, can you recommend a Lam book? You know, it depends on how deep you want to go. I think that, I mean, every Lam book that I pick up from the library is fantastic. And some are this thick and some are coming in 5 volumes, you know. So follow your heart and your intuition with where you want to go with this. You know, you might feel attracted to a certain book. Trust that intuition. Get that book and read it. Maybe that book speaks to you in a way that things come very easily to you. If I'm going to advise one book, you know, that is what speaks to me, but it doesn't necessarily speak to you. So use your own heart, your own wisdom mind, your own intuition to make your choices. You don't have to understand why you pick up that book. Just follow it. Don't think that is my attachment, right? It might be something you can generate a mind that says, I want to make a next step. I'm not sure where to go. And you sit with that and you, I sometimes say, you put it out to the universe and say, what is the best way for me to go? And then see what comes back to you. It might be that on the internet, some course appears to you and you think, oh, wow, that's nice, you know, follow that. Even if you don't understand what you're doing, follow it because you get more information. Same with books, same with readings, same with follow your intuition. Follow what your inner mind is telling you. That's your best guide. Okay. Do I need to say anything else? So all these videos from these teachings and also from previous teachings you can find on the YouTube channel from Tushita. And also I had to start a YouTube channel with going online, so you can put in my name and then my channel comes up. And if you want to stay informed about upcoming teachings from Tushita, go to their website my teachings, you can go to my website, which is just called lhundupjamyang.com, or my Facebook page. Yeah, don't know if I need to say anything more. Thank you very much. I hear that some people enjoyed the course. That's wonderful, and that it has been beneficial. That's the only reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So thank you for being here and giving me the chance to do these courses. I learn always a lot because it shows exactly, you know, where I have my problems too. And so being able to talk about it helps me go through a similar process as you are going through. Okay, so we did a tonglen meditation. So make sure that you sit comfortable. With your back straight. And your body relaxed. Relax your mind by staying in the present moment. And you can do that by letting the mind rest upon the body, or by paying attention to your breath. So we begin the practice with doing tonglen with our own problem, like we did 2 days ago. So bring to mind the problem that is troubling you, a small or medium-sized problem. Whether that is a physical problem or an emotional problem. Allow that problem to arise in your mind and see how painful it is. How your mind wants to push it away. Be mindful of that experience. Stay present with it. And you can bring your breath towards it. Talk kindly to yourself, as if you're talking to your best friend who is suffering from a similar issue. And then think, I'm not the only person in the world experiencing a problem like this. There are many others. I'm not alone in this. And then decide that you will accept or take on your own experience of this problem, with the compassionate wish that by doing so, all those other people will be free from their suffering. Let go of your resistance, your fear, your aversion towards the problem, and allow your mind to rest in a gentle, peaceful acceptance of it. And you can imagine that you breathe in the suffering. That will help you to take it on. And when you breathe out, you let go. And when your mind has become more peaceful, when your mind has found acceptance of your problem, we can turn, or we can practice the tonglen for somebody else's problem. So imagine in front of you someone you know, someone you love, and who is suffering. Put yourself in their situation and try to really feel the suffering they are experiencing and how they wish to be free of it. Feel how wonderful it would be if they could be free from all their suffering and problems. Then generate the courage to take their suffering upon yourself. Visualize at your heart a dark rock which represents your illusions such as your self-centeredness, your anger, attachment, and jealousy. A solid dark rock in your heart. Suffering in the form of thick dark smoke floating out of their body. As you inhale, imagine taking this dark smoke of suffering into yourself. It comes to your heart, absorbs into the rock of self-centeredness and the delusions, and then destroys that. Both the rock and the suffering, your own and that of the other person, become utterly non-existent. Feel a sense of joy that this person is now free from his or her suffering and problems. And when you exhale, you breathe out your happiness, your positive qualities and merit in the form of bright light. Imagine that it transforms into whatever will bring joy and peace of the mind to this person. It can be material things, love and friendship, inner qualities such as love, compassion, courage, and equanimity. Imagine that their needs and wishes are fulfilled, and their mind is filled with peace, happiness, and all the knowledge and qualities of the spiritual path. Let your mind rest for some time in a feeling of joyfulness that you have been able to help your loved one in this way. If in your imagination the person has become free from all their suffering, you can turn towards another person that you like, that is close to you. Same. If you have the feeling the person is not yet free of focusing on that person. And so you can do this practice on the rhythm of your breath. When you breathe in, you visualize any suffering that the person in front of you is experiencing. You visualize that in the form of thick, dark smoke comes towards you. Every time you breathe in the smoke. Or you pull towards you, that's dark smoke, their suffering. And you let it hit the black rock at your heart until it cracks open. And then light shines out. And then when you breathe out, you let that light go towards the person. And that light carries everything that that person needs. And you give it to them. Then you breathe in the suffering and you give whatever they need. So try to train that on the rhythm of your breath. And while you keep doing that, observe what changes in your mind. Maybe your confidence increases. Maybe your courage increases. Maybe you become more light. And maybe you feel very joyous because you can do this. Sometimes when people have strong connection with each other, the other person feels in actuality a relief of their suffering by you doing this practice. But the main benefit is for your mind. And so once you feel comfortable taking on your own suffering, whether that is your present suffering, your future suffering, and I even do it with taking on my past, then you go to those that you love, you take on their suffering. And when you feel comfortable doing that, you take on the suffering of strangers, those that you know that are suffering. You cannot help them in any way, but you can think of them and you can visualize that you take on their suffering. And once you feel comfortable doing that, you can even do it with those that you do not like. Seeing their suffering, then taking it on. That is very empowering for yourself when you can do that. And now we can bring this meditation to a conclusion. And not just this meditation, but also this session. And not only this session, but this whole course. And we visualize all the merit that we have created during this period of time. And you can visualize it in the form of white light in your heart. And then when we dedicate that for the well-being and happiness of all sentient beings, you can visualize that white light goes out through your crown and spreads in all the directions, touching each and every sentient being, bringing them happiness and well-being. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you in a future course, or maybe here at the Shita or somewhere else in the world. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.